It is Wednesday, uh, May 27th, 2020. I'm here talking to someone who I've tried to look out. Well, he's filled a need I've been trying to find for a while now regarding COVID conversations. Um, and I was looking for somebody particular in the commercial real estate space. I was looking for somebody who could speak about real estate, not necessarily from the day-to-day real estate agents, which I was getting a lot of. And I appreciate you all keep sending me people. But I was looking for somebody who was expert in the field and somebody who knew a lot that can kind of speak about what's happening. So I'm talking to, and I'm sorry if I get your name wrong, Juan. Mejia?
Mejia, you got it.
Okay, Mejia. So I try to get people's names right, so I don't want to make sure I messed it up. You're with Keller Williams.
Yeah, I'm in the KW commercial branch. So we have the luxury branch, the commercial, and then the traditional.
Right. And you're based out of Atlanta mostly, correct?
I am.
Okay. And so I bring that up because one of the things is in regards to real estate right now in Atlanta, there's been a lot of questions I've been seeing from people, and I'm going to ask you a few. But before we get into that, just explain to people who you are and how you got into the real estate business in the first place.
Sure. I was born in Colombia, migrated to the States early 2000s, did college here, and started my consulting company. From there, a lot of my clients were wanting to expand or move, and I worked with some great commercial agents, part of the team. However, not many of them spoke Spanish. I was getting my license for some, passive income on referrals, and I decided, you know what, instead of keeping it inactive, let me go active. So I toned down pretty much completely the consulting side. I may just do some special projects every now and then, but commercial real estate has been my full time. I really focus on the buyer and tenants. I thrive in small businesses and making sure they succeed. A lot of the reason that small businesses don't is they just take up too much overhead. So hopefully I can be a little bit of help to those small entrepreneurs.
Right. And so in regards to that, then I got to ask, in terms of commercial real estate in Atlanta right now, before we get into kind of how it's been affected by COVID, what was the commercial real estate space pre-COVID?
It was nice. It was hot. Commercial real estate, I feel like it's a big blanket. People don't realize there's so many different types of commercial real estate, from office to retail to land. So within each sector, some were doing hotter than others, but overall, it was a good industry.
Right. And so I was going to ask, can you go a little bit into that, just explain the different types of commercial real estate? Because somebody's going to listen and they assume everything that's not residential is going to be commercial.
So the big categories are office, pretty self-explanatory. The buildings you see where you have your accountants, your attorneys, service-based business, usually some call centers. Then you have industrial, think warehouse. There's a cool little in between of those called flex space. You can see a lot of those in like the Pond City Market area. Well, that's retail, but it's space that has been converted. Then you have retail, which is any sort of retail business you can think of, from a cellular device company to a Target shopping center of a sort. You have land, um, and land is not something I thrive in, but I think that's part of building your team, is being able to have someone that loves land and understands it and loves topography, and I can do the office leases like the back of my hand.
Okay. And so speaking in particular on your end of it, right now, we're in the midst of a pandemic. Has your particular segment of the real estate side actually been affected at all, or has it picked up? Has it sped down, or has it went down, or anything like that?
It was affected. I was able to close some deals right at the beginning of March, and those were steady businesses that have not been affected. I'm glad. There's others that we did see it coming. There's 2 deals that we were about to sign that week, like the week of the 12th, something like that. And I was like, hey, let's wait it out a little. And those did stall. They picked up about a month or so ago is when we started the conversations again. and we're actually going to be signing 2 new leases before the month's over. That's for a gym and a hookah lounge. So while they can't open, they're comfortable, they're seeing the numbers, and they want to get into that new space.
Okay. And I'm glad you brought that up, which is a lot of people right now who are small business owners are just trying to figure out what's going on in that space. In particular, a lot of them are trying to either renegotiate their leases. A lot of them, or some unfortunately have to get out of their leases. What do you want to say to people right now from both the small business owner side and the property owner side that people may not know about what's going on in the market right now?
There is no blanket answer. You have to just call your landlord up and have a conversation. Most landlords are very aware of what's going on. Some are offering like full rent abatement, some are doing partial, some are letting you carry a balance. So you pay what you can, and they're letting you carry balance and not charge you any interest or late fees or penalties. And once you're back and going, you can start paying that off. We are sort of blending and extending some leases in that sense. That's where the real estate agent comes in. We have like curveballs that people may not think about, and we can really talk with that landlord. But the thing with the difference between residential and commercial is these tenants are not there for like the 1-year lease terms that apartments usually get. They're there for 5-10 years. It really depends on the type. Retail's a little longer than office. Office may be 3 years, but a restaurant does not want to move their operations into the year. So they may have 10-20 year leases.
Okay.
And those are relationships that a landlord's not going to want to start over.
Okay. And so in regards to right now in the Atlanta market, a lot of people right now are saying right now that we're not as affected as maybe other markets have been. Do you think there's any truth to that?
I think we are affected. I think the keyword may be not as affected. I would agree with that. I'm not necessarily seeing, and this is my prediction, I'm not seeing businesses no longer utilizing commercial space. What I am seeing is businesses maybe going from a Class A building, it's a high rise that has all the amenities, to a Class B building that, it's still in a good location, maybe not the high rise with the concierge of that sort, because they just don't want that extra overhead.
Okay. And so in regards to that right now, one of the things about the Atlanta real estate market is, like you said, it's been hot for a while. Even with COVID-19 right now, for the most part, it doesn't seem as shell shocked as some other places. If this pandemic were to say go on longer than 12 months, do you think that we'll start to see a greater impact, or do you think that we're just stronger in our commercial space than maybe another marketplace would be?
Well, I've had conversations with landlords, and it's a matter of adapting. I think if it does go 12 months, we're going to feel it more, but I don't think we're just going to go to a level where we can't recover. We have ways that they have been increasing the amount of times the buildings get cleaned. They have been putting some more protocols in there. Landlords are getting creative in ways so their tenants feel safe and secure, and they want to keep coming to the building. Luckily, most people can work from home. It just depends on the industry they're in. Some can, some cannot.
Okay. And so with COVID happening right now, the greatest thing I've seen right now is just a sheer number of people who hit me up every day or maybe twice a day saying, hey, King, I was thinking about opening up this small business, but now I'm really worried that if I get a lease, I may not be able to sustain my business, or my business might not be able to grow. What do you say to that person who's an entrepreneur right now who maybe is still trying to get into that space? They're trying to open up a lease, but they're kind of concerned about where the market would be at.
They're in a good spot, more than people that already have leases, because they are just now negotiating what that lease says. So for the new clients that, I have been working through COVID with, we have gotten a lot of free rent.
Okay.
Landlords aren't really wanting to lower the price. Actually, I was reading a report not too long ago that lease or sales prices have increased by 1%.
Oh, wow.
The
Okay.
amount of sales have decreased by 1%, but the actual price has increased by 1%. That was put on by, I think, the National Association of Realtors. But so they may not be wanting to go down on the price per square foot, but they are giving other concessions. It can be TI dollars or tenant improvement dollars that the landlord may give you some sort of cash to make the space your own. It could be free rent. It could be just extra amenities that they're putting in there, and not really the CAM not going up. So they're getting creative. They want people coming in there. I think the job of a agent is not necessarily to close as many transactions, but make sure they're in a good place. I've had conversations with business owners that it's like, hey, your cash flow may not be quite there for you going to this space, but if this is a space, let's wait it out a year. Let's keep doing the space you're in. You may not need that extra 2,000 square feet just now, but like, let's stay where you are. I'm not here to close transactions because when they grow, I grow. So we're thinking long term here. We're not just here knocking out leases or purchase deals.
Right. And so, in regards to just that space right now with real estate, Keller Williams seems to be doing great as a company. Do you think that after COVID, let's say, that there will be a consolidation in the real estate space between, let's say, Keller either purchasing or merging or just other players in the marketplace getting bigger? Or do you think it's going to kind of stay about the same?
I think there's going to be a growth on the little guys.
Okay.
Because commercial real estate right now is dominated by the big ones, JLL, CBRE, Cushman Wakefield, those guys. But nowadays you are getting, I think Palmer House has a commercial division. KW Commercial has their division. And then you still have the mom and pop brokers that are still in the game. So they are seeing that there's a very big demand for people to get assistance in the commercial field, and there are new players. There are people interested in buying out the little brokerages, but I think you'll still see some new names and faces in the game.
Okay. Because one of the things a lot of people are slowly starting to say, and I'm hearing, is that this issue of consolidation, and particularly consolidation around the commercial space, some people believe that maybe every player may not have the capital to withstand a long-term pandemic, and that it would be a bigger player like the ones you mentioned who may come out of this stronger than before. But I'm glad that you actually gave me something that was different, which is you think there might be a growing number of smaller players that enter the space.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key is that overhead and how you're going to leverage it. I mean, I was just having a conversation with a buddy. He's with SVN, and the amount of overhead CBRE has is very large. They have the high rises, they have the support staff, the accountants, the legal, that the small brokerages don't have.
Right. And in regards to the small brokerages, what would you offer as advice to somebody who wants to get into the commercial space for the first time, or who's just got into it, but they haven't really made much headwinds?
The players in commercial real estate are older, and it's usually male dominated. It's starting to change, and I'm happy to see that. I'm involved with the Atlanta Commercial Board's mentorship program, and just the class that's in there this year is very diverse, and I'm happy to see that. But we were going through a class of the sort, and the reason why it's so tough to get into commercial real estate, it's because you don't get your first transaction, or you may not get a transaction in that first year. So you have to have that bankroll to really survive. And I'm a big believer that if you're going to do something, you have to give it your all. So that's where I sort of tone down consulting, because if I really want to grow commercial real estate, I have to give it my all. And I was able to afford to do that because I had just sold one of my previous businesses, but it took a couple months before I got my first deal. That was a consulate. I do a lot of community stuff, so it sort of worked out that way. I have already started my network, for lack of better words, before I got in the game, but a lot of people are starting fresh. So it takes a while. Don't get discouraged. but I do want to like put a warning out there that have your savings, because it may be a while before you see your first deal. As opposed to residential, you may get your first deal in 30 days or 90-day tops. Commercial, maybe a couple months.
Right. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because one of the things I see a lot of people who I get way more real estate emails than you probably would believe. But one of the things that people always send to me is like, hey, I'm interested in getting the real estate. Most of the time they think residential. And for the one or two I get for commercial, they're generally confused on even how to start that process, on how to even seek a deal, or even how to find and acquire a property, then find a tenant. So would you be able to give any information on that for like a first time person?
It is relationship building. I think every business is, but I think commercial real estate is even bigger. Uh, so I think you start with your circles and you be genuine, because people can sniff you right away if you're just trying to, get in, get to meet them and try to sell them something. So if you're genuine, if you really care, of like, where are you a regular at? Do you have a favorite restaurant? Do you know the manager? Do you know the owner? And just be genuine in those interactions. I mean, mine came from community. I've been involved in different organizations for the past 10 years. So people sort of start recognizing your face and they're like, oh, Juan's doing commercial real estate now. Give him a call. A lot of the things are referral based. And I would much rather say, hey, I have to refer this out to someone else than try to do 10 deals at once and then look bad at.
Okay. Okay, I like that. And so also I want to ask you in particular, you're one of the growing players, Latino players in the real estate space in the state of Georgia. What advice or what information would you want to give to those people who are like yourself, like a young Latino man who wants to get into real estate, or who's already in, but they just haven't taken that leap forward or like the next level?
Don't give up.
Okay.
It's tough, especially when you put in all those hours. I think you're pretty familiar. We don't, bill at an hourly rate. We're putting our eggs in a basket. And I've had clients, especially with COVID, be like, hey, I know we worked together for 2 months, but we're not in a good space. One of my clients had COVID, and what am I going to do? Hey, I know you're going through this. Let's keep this deal going. No, but it's just keeping those connections going even while you have deals. I think a lot of the newer players, like, okay, I got a deal. They put all their attention into it. And then they forget that they still have to get that pipeline going and work on those connections, because cool, you finished your first deal, but if you didn't do anything to nurture that second deal, then you're now going to have to wait that, 6 months to a year and a half before you close that second deal. So it's an art of multitasking.
Okay. And one of the things I really enjoy about what you've done so far is that I'm just going through everything. You've been in real estate for a while. You're a graduate of Metro Atlanta School at Kennesaw State. I
I
I enjoy seeing people like yourself who stay in Atlanta. So I want to ask you, when you graduated college, what made you stay in Atlanta? You could have went anywhere, but what made you stay here?
the people,
Okay.
um, also saw Atlanta growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, I think Atlanta's been growing by leaps and bounds since the Olympics. That was before my time in Atlanta. But I did a minor stint in South Florida, and it's a great place to vacation. I have family down there, but Atlanta was home. Um, and I knew that from the very beginning. And I actually bought my first piece of real estate at 22. I
Okay.
took student loans to help me with the down payment.
That's not a bad plan. I was going to ask you to explain that. So you took your student loans and just made a down payment. What
Yeah,
does that?
I mean, I had been working from an early age. My work trajectory is crazy all over the place, but I love it. I wouldn't do it any other way. But yeah, I was working full time during college. Had that nice W-2 job that helps a lot when it comes to buying your first home, and had savings. And between the savings and the student loans, I don't know if federal student loans is going to get onto me, but that was how I was able to get my first little condo in Buckhead.
Okay. And so the fact that you had that kind of vision and foresight is obviously how you managed to be a success in the real estate space now. If you could do it all over again in regards to just starting from that point, would you have done anything differently?
Um, I want to say yes. There's lots of things that I probably could have done differently and sooner and wiser, but I'm happy with the trajectory I've gone. A lot of my friends are significantly older than me, and they were the people that guided me and gave me that wisdom. It was like, hey, don't throw away money at rent and buy your place. And they twisted my arm, and I'm glad they did. Also, I don't think owning is for everyone. I think a lot of my residential real estate people are going to kill me for saying that.
You got to explain that one.
But if you're not sure, you just graduated college, you're still looking for a job, um, you may not want to purchase a property, use your capital into a piece of land. It's going to increase. I'm a big believer real estate's a good investment, but save that money and buy where you once you sort of laid roots down. I knew Atlanta was home. I love Atlanta. I love other places that I want to get some more properties in, but I think my family's here. I just saw long term and I decided to do that. I mean, I have multiple properties here. Being a landlord is not for the lighthearted. I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
But, uh, you know, I like the way I did it. I think you have to weigh it out. I think Atlanta rent prices are very high compared to ownership prices. So if you're going to be in Atlanta for a couple of years, I still think buying would be a good bet. If you're only going to be here for a few months, you're testing out the city, it's transient, buying may not be a good bit unless you have that sort of cash flow that tying up several $1,000s is not going to affect you, then go for it.
Right. And so we're going to wrap up soon. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about regarding your experience in commercial real estate or regarding COVID-19 that we haven't talked about so far?
I mean, COVID-19 has slowed it down. I think anywhere, any industry you talk to, it's slowed down. But people are still trying to keep going and be as normal as possible. I mean, one of my clients was a consulate dealing with a foreign country during COVID, and their budget's also being slashed. Was definitely a wide opening experience for me because everywhere's feeling it. It's not just the US. So it's how can we help people? How do we make community throughout this hard time? So, I mean, we're all humans, we're leaning on each other. And I think that's where we have to have compassion and we have to be honest with people, because if we're trying to flex right now, then how can we really help each other?
Okay. And Juan, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, how can they do that?
I think the main ones, Instagram, JCM Ventures, LinkedIn, JuanMejia. I think it's LinkedIn/JC-Mejia. Email jcmejia@kwcommercial.com. I'm always open to chatting with people, meeting people. I mean, that's how we connected. And I think that's the beautiful thing is like get to know people. I may not be able to help you, King, right now, but 10 years down the road, you may have a weird real estate question that I can help you with. But it's about just getting to know people, chatting. If there's people that are trying to get into space, I'd love to help them out. I'm telling you that Atlanta Commercial Board mentorship program is great. You don't have to have a license. I know there's some people in there that are like finishing up their schooling, like their undergrad, but they're interested in doing real estate. I'd love to connect them with that. There's mentorship opportunities. I know there's 3 people in my office that we're mentoring new agents that want to get involved in commercial real estate. I think it's a big disservice when residential agents try to do commercial deals. They may not know some of those loopholes, like the free rent or asking for options on their leases. And that way they have an option to stay longer if they want. And they have already pre-negotiated the rate 10 years down the road. So it's about mentorship and being okay raising your hand and saying, I need help, and just having a support network there to help you.
I actually like that. And we're going to end on that one, which is, once again, you guys, Juan we haven't gotten into a lot, but he actually is an excellent wealth of knowledge in regards to the commercial real estate space. I would suggest, if you guys haven't, please contact him if you have any questions on that. If you're maybe even looking to get into either leasing space, contact Juan as well. Hopefully this is not the last time we talk, Juan, and I thank you guys for listening again today. Wherever you heard this at, please like and review it. And once again, if you want to contact me on any social media platform, you can always reach me at I am King Williams, so at I am King Williams on all social media platforms. And if you haven't already, please sign up for the newsletter at iamkingwilliams.substack.com. So iamkingwilliams.substack.com. All right, thanks, Juan.
Thanks for having me.